Hey friends, Jave Danielle here. Now on this week's episode of Taking a Bite Out of History, we're going to talk about one of the most obscure cakes that I have made to date. And really, this cake doesn't even live up to its name. Cue the intro. This week, we're talking about a Boston cream pie. Now, when I first started to research this cake,
according to my research,
I was very confused because I couldn't find that much on it. And I thought, where is all the information on a Boston cream pie? Turns out there just isn't a lot of it.
Where's the beef?
Which is okay, because I've decided to break down this episode into the three main components of a Boston cream pie. We're going to talk first about a sponge, then we're going to talk about a pastry cream, and then we will talk about a chocolate ganache. Did you know that sponge cakes are one of the oldest sweet goods in the world? And this is probably due to the fact that they have a short ingredient list. Really, you only need cake flour, you need sugar, you need salt, but you also need eggs, and that can be a whole egg or an egg yolk. Now, let's take a walk back to the Renaissance. During the Renaissance, Italian cooks were hired by Frenchmen and Englishmen, and this was really due to their superior cooking skills. Now, they brought a whole lot to the table. Now, one of the recipes that they brought was actually for a sponge cake. In 1615, Gervais Markham wrote in a book a recipe for a sponge cake. Now, their sponge cakes were very different from our sponge cake. Mine is pretty thick, it's light, it's fluffy, you can press it down, it looks really cool. However, their sponge cake was thin and crispy. It was very similar to a biscuit. You can kind of think of it as like a cookie almost if you're in the States. However, by the middle of the 18th century, using yeast as a leavening agent was out, and using eggs that had been beaten was in. Bakers started using eggs as their leavening agent. This particular sponge cake became the talk of the town, and it got the recognition that it really deserved. The second component of a really good Boston cream pie is actually going to be the creme pat. Now, creme pat is a very creamy, textured, rich ingredient that is versatile and can be enhanced by a ton of things. The origin of a creme pat is a wee bit ambiguous because I saw some different resources that said it was from France and I saw others that said it was from Italy. Now, with my deductive reasoning skills,
Sherlock, homeboy,
I've determined that it makes perfect sense for it to be ambiguous because Italian cooks were hired back in the day by French and Englishmen. So we don't really know where it comes from. However, we do know that there is a cookbook. It was called the Royal and Bourgeoisie Cookbook back in the day. This particular book documents the very first recipe. And since then, we know that creme pat can be enhanced by multiple things, whether it's chocolate or white chocolate or caramel or hazelnut, vanilla bean, you name it. It can be enhanced. On top of that, it's used in multiple things. So you have your croissant, you have your millefeuille, your Napoleons, your cream puffs, your religières, you have your eclairs, you have your... It can be used in a ton of things, people. The last component of a really good Boston cream pie is going to be the chocolate ganache. So ganache is a thick chocolate paste that could be used in literally anything. It can be used as a frosting or as a filling. So legend has it that chocolate ganache comes from this one bakery where someone made a very simple mistake. Also, if you're making chocolate ganache, you want to use a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay? If you're using white chocolate, use a 1-to-3 ratio. Legend has it that the chef asked his assistant to heat up some chocolate and to also heat up some cream. The assistant took it upon himself to mix them both together. And as he did that, he came up with what we know to be a ganache. Oh, that looks brilliant. When the master saw what happened, he yelled at the assistant. He called the mixture a ganache, and a ganache at the time was an insult for a slog or for a slug. And when really you think about chocolate ganache, I can kind of see that. However, he decided to try it. He put the mixture into one of the cakes in between the layers, and that cake was one of his best sellers. And that, my friends, is how we get chocolate ganache. But Gervais, where in the world does the history of the Boston cream pie come from? I got you. So it's 1856 and we're at the Parker House Hotel and it's their grand opening night. Someone in the back has come up with this concoction and they reel it out for their guests. The guests love it from there. Now, from what I read, the Boston cream pie was actually called a chocolate cream pie, okay? It didn't get the name or the moniker Boston until after Boston decided to adopt the cake as its official dessert. The second thing is, we keep calling this a pie and it's actually a cake. Cake tins or cake pans are a relatively new invention, and I'm not talking within the last 20 years. They've been around longer than that. However, most of our cakes from the olden times, from the dark ages, whatever you want to call it, were actually made in pie tins. It was a lot easier and they were a lot more convenient. They were around, okay? So it wouldn't surprise me if this cake was actually made in a pie tin, like many other cakes back in the day. And so it just got a cute little name that way. In 1958, the Boston cream pie was so popular that Betty Crocker actually made a box cake for this particular cake. Say cake again. All right, my friends, thank you for joining me on this tasty and historical journey. If you like this kind of content, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends and your loved ones. I love ya, and I know you love me. Bye.